Try to strong-arm evict me illegally? We'll see about that. This happened back in 2010, when I lived in Winter Garden, Florida, with my husband and his dying uncle. Background: my husband and I moved in with his sick uncle after losing so much during the 2008 housing market crash in the US. Like many of my husband's lawn maintenance customers, we also moved in with his uncle into a condo because his uncle had stage 4 cirrhosis of the liver, and his self-entitled sister and her family refused to help take care of him. My husband, a retired Seminole County Sheriff's officer, important later, and I got ourselves set in the condo's 2 bedrooms as his uncle had himself set up in the living room, including his bed. On the first day, we found dangerous black mold caused by a leaky dishwasher. On the second day, we found the master shower had loose tiles and a leaky shower head. On the third day, we found a nest of brown recluse spiders in the living room. We talked with his uncle about these problems and found out that the slumlord, friends with self-entitled sister/aunt and her family, was refusing to take care of the issues as required by law. We wanted to start legal actions then, but my husband's uncle talked us out of it several times. The slumlord was nice to us, so long as my husband's sick uncle was alive. The very next day after my husband's uncle died was a completely different story. Slumlord had turned nasty, aggressive, and began to try and strong-arm evict us like we were nothing more than drug addicts, squatters. Slumlord even bowed up and aggressively tried to fight my husband when we dropped off our next rent check. He kept telling us that we had to move or else, but yet refused to follow actual FL laws to evict us. Slumlord and his corrupt Winter Garden PD code enforcement officer wife even recruit my husband's self-entitled aunt and uncle to start harassing about just moving, even if we had to live in a tent. Self-entitled aunt, why don't you and my RSO nephew just move so they can rent the condo to another senior? Husband, we don't have anywhere else to go yet, and he must go through eviction laws or get into very serious trouble. Self-entitled aunt, you're nothing but trouble. Retired SCSD officer nephew, you've been problems since the day you were born. Get out of their condo and stop being a problem for everyone. Who cares if you have to live in a tent? All of this made my retired SCSD officer husband, who specialized in uncovering corrupted law enforcement, very suspicious. We talked and began investigating slumlord and corrupt code enforcement wife. My first order was to place all rent into escrow with evidence of repairs that have been neglected. Second, I sent a notification of cease and desist of harassment to the slumlord and self-entitled aunt. Next, I researched public property tax records. Woohoo. Pay dirt there. Slumlord's condo wasn't registered as a rental property with the state of FL and was paying far less in property taxes than slumlord should been paying. Property tax records also showed that slumlord did not own the condo. It was still deeded to his mother, which I found out had been living in a retirement home for 5 years before my husband's uncle moved in. My husband found out that corrupt code enforcement wife had been inspecting and signing off on hers and slumlord's properties, including the condo, which is against FL code enforcement conduct laws. I found out from neighbors in the condo that slumlord had only been renting to seniors with severe health issues. My best discovery though next to tax evasion was finding out that the condo owners association had a very strict no renting/leasing policy, meaning your family had to live in the condo and couldn't be rented. The revenge. Now that we had all of our evidence, my husband and I began to knock down all of the slumlord's dominoes. My husband went and filed a complaint with the Winter Garden Police Department about corrupt code enforcement wife and her perjuring inspections on her family properties. My husband has a glowing record in Seminole County, and with the FDLE for having over 200 clean arrests and taking down nearly 60 corrupt public officials, including Child Protective Services in the early 2000s. This background helped push WGPD to open an investigation into corrupt code enforcement wife. They discovered that not only had she perjured inspections on her family's properties, but also on my husband's self-entitled aunt and uncle's property as well. This got corrupt code enforcement wife fired, stripped of her state enforcement officer's license, and convicted of multiple crimes. I sent all property tax fraud evidence to the FL's property tax division. That got the state to investigate slumlord. The state found that not only did he commit property tax fraud on the condo, but also on a property that he was renting to his son and self-entitled aunt's son, along with business tax fraud and income tax fraud. Both slumlord's son and self-entitled aunt's son were also busted for possession of illegal narcotics with intent to sell when investigators came to the rental house they lived. I never expected that much fraud to be found from all of this, but I'm glad it happened. The business tax fraud of slumlord affected self-entitled aunt and self-entitled uncle as well, since they were his business partners. Self-entitled uncle then came under investigation by the USPS board as he was the postmaster of Winter Garden. Self-entitled uncle lost his comfy job and pension after it was discovered how he was assisting slumlord in the tax fraud scam and for stealing money orders. All four were convicted of multiple white-collar crimes, had to sell their properties and most of their stuff, serve some form of time, and pay huge amounts of fines and restitution. Slumlord, his wife, hubby's self-entitled aunt, and hubby's self-entitled uncle along with their sons all went down for multiple crimes, both felonies and misdemeanors, all because they thought they could strong-arm evict us. Just proves how smart we tenants can really be when pushed. Also proves why everyone should know our rental laws and how to research public records, because it can save you in the end. Now onto the comments. Holy shit, that definitely counts as nuclear. Awesome work. Hopefully they ended up living in a tent. Sent them a nice tent warming card with brown recluse spiders. Don't forget the spiders. Did you get any reaction out of them? Just curious, I'd love to hear it. And OP replied to the self-entitled aunt and uncle disowned my husband afterwards because of it, according to my hubby's other nicer aunt. She also told self-entitled aunt that they couldn't live with her in her farmhouse, whereas we have an open invitation for the rest of our lives. I'm plucking out shrapnel from reading this. Know your rights is really the most powerful phrase. I know your hub's uncle was laughing in the afterlife too. Nice work. D. There really needs to be a class for learning stuff like this. High school would probably be the best time to learn it. Laws change too often. The basics can be taught and should be mandatory at school in my opinion. What's the point of having laws if most people only know the really serious person-on-person crime/damages? Learning how to read law and having a law degree is what makes the lawyers stand out. They can read and interpret correctly the new laws. It wouldn't be feasible to teach every kid to read law. You are talking 4 years full-time minimum. I agree that a rudimentary law class should be run showing briefly how to read and interpret law and what the laws are at that time. Baffles me that they have religious education in most schools about a historical time long ago that may or may have not happened. I won't give my view as it's irrelevant, rather than a class on the laws that you are to abide by in the here and now. What you do if you are suspected of breaking a law, how to avoid genuinely accidental breaking of certain laws, etc., etc. Just the basic fundamentals would be fine for most, and likely save a lot of hassle, and morons policing the police. Asking often irrelevant questions with a camera up the officer's nose. I'm all for recording interactions, don't be obtuse about it though. I'm also all for asking questions, again just not being deliberately awkward. Sorry, turned into a mini rant. My wife is from Lakeland. I have to go there frequently, because I'm all about my nephews and Sil. I love them so much. So much. Good Christ on a rickety crapper. Do I fucking hate Polk County and the surrounding areas. I live 2 hours away, and I'm just cranky af the second I see the Polk County sign. I'm not at all surprised that this went down. If anything, I'm shocked you actually accomplished anything. If I ever run into money, the first thing I'm doing is buying them a house literally anywhere that isn't there. And now on to the next story. Ruined a marriage in my family for revenge. So I recently discovered this sub and had a personal story to share. On mobile, so forgive formatting /grammar/etc. Story is several years old. I've always been the black sheep of the family. Cousins grew up to be doctors, professors, creatives and whatever else. Meanwhile, I've managed to just make a humble stable passive income through some business decisions. Nothing fancy, but I can afford a 1-bedroom in Nick and live comfortably with that, and a part-time job in a cafe. Everyone in the family, including my own parents, judge me harshly for not pushing myself to do what my cousins do, especially my one cousin we will call Randy. Think the stereotypical dude bro who got rich thanks to working for his dad. Multiply that by 10 and you got Randy. Anyway, he always gave me the most shit, and eventually I just tuned them out cause I get to enjoy my life with my work part-time and still afford what I want. So, to cut the bullshit short, Randy has a wife and 2 kids. He also had a mistress. I found this out cause one day, when I was walking through the city, when I saw him walking down the street with a woman, who clearly wasn't his wife, arms around each other. I checked Facebook, and saw he had indeed posted about visiting a bajal shop in the city, while on a business trip that morning, so we had indeed in the city. So, I decided fuck it, let me see how this plays out. I followed them for 5 hours, snapped several photos, one of them going into a hotel together. I held on to these, and waited until Christmas that year. About 6 months later, I decided to unceremoniously drop printed photos in front of everyone at the table before dinner, and made sure to get his wife to see them. Cue screaming and fighting. I actually got a black eye out of it. It was Randy's dad who did it though, not him. Cue police. A lot of questioning. My and I get kicked out. We head back home, after talking to the cops one last time. The aftermath. Besides Randy's wife and another cousin who hates Randy, my family cut me off entirely for several years. Whatever, even my parents had always expressed disappointment in me for not applying myself fully, so no real loss there. Randy got divorced. Lost full custody of the kids after threatening his ex. Family occasionally tries to guilt me into apologizing, but my response is some variation of not gonna apologize for outing a cheating cunt, and I'm promptly blocked for another few months. So and Randy's ex-wife are good friends and the kids call me Uncle Nick, having a family who actually loves me unconditionally for once. So and I got married, and that's when my family last tried to get into contact with me and were actually nice for once. Seeing me moving on, I guess, eats at the mighty K. Maybe realizing their punching bag is gone for good. That's it really. Living my best life now with a good family as opposed to a shit one. Edit. First, thanks for support and awards. Second, a bunch of y'all seem to think being abused is not traumatic or bad, as several comments seem to be saying wow, you're a bad person for having a negative reaction to abuse and not handling it like a golden human being. So I'll clarify, the comments about my wasted potential weren't just oh your cousin's a doctor, what about you? They were I can't believe Randy just sealed a deal for X amount of dollars. Are you still working at that shitty cafe? Are you still saying what's her name? The girl with the pudgy stomach? Aren't you ever gonna do anything with your life? I'd feel so worthless living like that. Those are the nicer ones. The worst ones include being told that it's better I didn't try as I wouldn't amount to anything, and other such things along those lines, as I really don't care to remember the more toxic lines. I'm not interested in judgment. Go post on 8 threads if you want to say your piece about that, but don't fucking tell me that I wasn't an abuse victim and wasn't treated horribly by my own family just cause I didn't spell out the nitty-gritty details. And now on to the comments. This is a strange blend of petty plus nuclear. I like it, I really do. And OP replied to this, I think what really made me snap is while I never consciously acknowledged it until after this event, my family was just super toxic, so this was a big send off fuck you from me to them. I get it. Randy's a cunt, but it sounds like it's really just about upsetting the family for all the times they chipped away at your self-confidence and happiness. You shattered their idyllic delusional reality. That had to be satisfying. He did say Randy was one of the biggest assholes in the family, so there is that. I think it's the low effort compared to other posts. Op merely printed some photos of a cheater and gave them out to family to show the truth, and still the big fallout of a family separated, for the better in this case. It only takes one misplaced control rod to melt down a nuclear reactor. Perfect example. I understand that Randy is still family to them, but why would they side with him or against you when he was actively cheating on his wife and broke up his own family? You shouldn't have to apologize to scum like him. And OP replied, cause he was the golden boy. They are willing to forgive a lot of shit while hypocritically judging others for the same shit. Randy cheated. Whatever. Their neighbor cheated. Pure scum. That's it for today. Thank you for joining us. What were your thoughts on today's stories? Be sure to leave them in the comments below. And be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps this channel grow.